Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today we're going to fundamentally rethink how we view business operations. Most of us are taught to look at a company like it's some rigid, predictable machine. You pull a lever over here and a gear turns over there. But today we're basically throwing that perspective out the window. We're going to explore how to stop trying to run a machine and instead start cultivating a living, dynamic economy of human action.
We've got a really fascinating roadmap for today. We'll start with the science of human action, move from tasks to economic thinking, explore business as spontaneous order, discuss decentralizing your decision rights, and wrap up with failure as knowledge creation.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the science of human action.
To really shatter that old-school, top-down management mindset, we need to talk about praxeology. It's a concept championed by the economist Ludwig von Mises, and it is literally the science of human action. It shows us that businesses aren't just levers waiting to be pulled by a CEO. They're actually dynamic ecosystems made up of individuals who are making purposeful choices every single day. You're dealing with independent human minds here, not inanimate objects.
And the 19th century economist Friedrich Bastiat perfectly captured the trap so many leaders fall into. He pointed out that central planners mistakenly believe they have to manually assemble and move people around to create order, basically treating them like inert matter or just passive particles. But reality doesn't work that way. People have their own impulses, they possess highly specific local knowledge, and they have an incredible capacity for problem solving.
Moving right along to Section 2, tasks to economics and building a maker mindset.
So if we accept that humans aren't just inert matter, how do we actually harness all that purposeful action in a day-to-day business? Well, the absolute crucial shift here is moving your team from simply executing tasks, which we can call the taker mindset, to thinking economically, which is the maker mindset. A taker just waits for instructions, basically acting like a cog in a machine. But a maker? A maker acts like an owner. They focus on creating way more value with fewer expenses. It's all about driving hyper-productivity so the business thrives, pays better, and lifts up the broader community.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. Take a look at actual ginger and turmeric processing units over in Meghalaya, India. Strategic advisors looked at the data and found that a tiny, almost invisible 2% yield improvement, just going from 51 to 53%, directly changes procurement costs. It saves 15 to 20 rupees per kilogram. And it's the exact same story with roasting loss. Cutting that by just 2% saves up to 15 rupees a kilo.
Now put that into perspective. If a business is selling 35,000 kilograms a year, that microscopic shift in yield translates to over 5 million, actually in local terms, over 5 lakh rupees saved annually. That is exactly why every single employee has to think like an economist. When a frontline worker realizes that a 2% efficiency gain directly impacts the company's survival and their own paycheck, you don't have to micromanage them anymore. They just naturally start managing the economics themselves.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, business as spontaneous order.
So the big question is, how do you structure a company to capture these brilliant, hyper-productive insights without micromanaging everyone to death? We rely on a concept called spontaneous order. Instead of a rigid, top-down hierarchy, it's an environment where reality-based mental models guide independent actions. Think of it kind of like a free market. Instead of a boss dictating every micro-step, employees use shared tools and principles to organically adjust to one another.
In this kind of ecosystem, coordination happens entirely naturally. It relies heavily on the shared and often completely silent local knowledge of the people actually doing the work on the ground. You literally eradicate rigid central planning. Instead, you empower the employees to solve problems themselves using reality-based principles. I mean, they are the ones closest to the problem, right? So naturally, they're the best equipped to find the solution.
And the great economist F.A. Hayek hit the nail on the head regarding this. His crucial point is that as a business grows and becomes more complex, a single central board or a single CEO can never possibly know enough to make all the right decisions. Decentralization isn't just a fun, modern business trend to try out. As your complexity scales, it becomes an absolute survival imperative.
Let's look at how to actually do this in Section 4, decentralizing your decision rights.
All this theoretical stuff forces a very practical question. It's one thing to talk about spontaneous order in a 10-person startup, but what does a decentralized, multi-billion-dollar giant actually look like? How do you maintain any sort of order when thousands of people are making their own independent decisions?
Well, let's take a look at Nucor Steel. Back in the late 1990s, Nucor was a $4.3 billion giant. But get this, They only had 4 layers of management, total. Their CEO, John Carenti, said they basically turned the corporate pyramid upside down. By pushing decision rights all the way down to the autonomous plant level, Nucor mobilized the silent, local knowledge of its frontline workers. Plant managers ran things like independent business owners, and it led to decades of unmatched profitability in a really tough, highly cyclical industry.
But you have to remember, this kind of internal mindset doesn't just happen overnight. It requires a very intentional evolution. Whether you're in a massive steel mill in Indiana or a spice processing plant in Meghalaya, employees have to progress through 4 distinct stages. They start as an operator, just doing the physical work. Then they become an analyst, truly understanding the metrics behind the work. From there, they grow into an owner, taking real responsibility for the outcomes. And finally, they evolve into a capital allocator, finding the absolute best ways to deploy resources for maximum economic return.
Okay, bringing us to our final section, Section 5, Failure as Knowledge.
Here's the catch. Pushing decision rights down to autonomous owners means people are definitely going to make mistakes. But acknowledging human action means you absolutely have to accept risk. Ken Iverson, the legendary chairman of Nucor, understood this completely. He explicitly told his teams that even the best managers only make good decisions about 60% of the time. That means nearly half of all new investments or ideas might fail. But if you try to completely eliminate those failures, you choke off the exact innovation that drives spectacular success.
The most innovative companies in the world don't see themselves as production lines. They see themselves as knowledge creation systems. Think about Elon Musk's approach to building rockets. The goal is absolutely not to avoid failure at all costs. The goal is to maximize the pace of your experiments. You test a hypothesis as fast as possible. And as Musk says, physics is a harsh judge. You just let reality tell you what works and what doesn't, and then you adapt.
We really need to stop viewing failure as a systemic collapse. When a central planner at the top makes a mistake, the whole machine breaks down. But in a decentralized, spontaneous order, a localized failure is just tuition. It's just the necessary, expected cost of discovering new, incredibly valuable knowledge about what actually works in a highly complex, constantly changing economy.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought. Look at your own team, your own business, or even just your own daily projects. Are you still trying to pull all the levers and control every single variable like you're operating a machine? Or are you ready to decentralize power, embrace the science of human action, and cultivate a real economy where your people can truly thrive? The choice is entirely yours, but the economic consequences are massive. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.